How do we get good at what we do? When we start our careers, our businesses, or our new job, what plans do we make to increase our productivity, to stay relevant, to better serve our customers? This is me, fairly early in my career. This was actually our firm's second anniversary and the day we bought our second CAD station. Isn't it a beauty? I had made a lot of plans to grow and improve back then, and most paid off with new business over the years. But as time went on, the more I worked on getting good, the harder it became. It felt like I was always swimming upstream. It was taking me longer to do the same kinds of projects. There was always more research to do, and my design teams were getting larger and more complicated to manage. From my past experience, I could see that the same kind of projects were taking longer to build, costing more, much more than just an inflation factor. And there were growing construction delays, bigger contingency budgets, more rework, many more RFIs and change orders. I remember sharing these concerns with a client one afternoon over beers. He said he had similar problems, that it took an average of 8 hours for him to complete a work order, if they did it at all, and that his facilities department took hours just to tell him how much leasable space was left in one of their buildings. Well, we went on complaining about poor project planning and how designers and owners seemed to ignore the operations side of things. Finally, he concluded, well, that's just the way it is. But to me, this was not the way to serve my customers. So I decided that if I was going to continue my business, I was going to have to create a completely new kind of firm. So I began doing some research into new practice methods, but I didn't get very far. Instead, I found a number of studies that were describing my problem. There were studies from the Construction User Roundtable, McGraw-Hill on interoperability, a really interesting study by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, and many more. Everyone was having productivity problems, from architects to contractors, facility managers, and owners. It was this one study by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics that really said it all. On average, all non-farm industry sectors had increased productivity over 220%, except one, the construction industry. My industry, and probably your industry, which actually lost over 20%. So then I wondered, well, whose fault was this? Was it the contractors, the architects, the material suppliers? Maybe it was the owners. I did a little more research and I found the answer. It was none of the above, and it was all of the above. Let me explain. Up to about 200 years ago, there were only a small handful of building materials we could use, and only certain ways they could be put together. In general, there were only a few acceptable architectural styles and plan types to choose from, and only a small number of trades to construct them. Pretty much all the information needed to design and construct a building could be held in the mind of the then called master builder. But by the 19th century, the Industrial Revolution and its technologies were changing the world. And as a result, our facility industry started to split, first between those that built and those that designed, and then into the various tradesmen and engineering disciplines. And as they divided, new processes developed, and new business structures were created. New values evolved, like individuality, and financial reward systems developed linked to these values. Throughout the 20th century, our industry continued to evolve with new innovations in materials and methods and technologies, and for each new discovery, a specialty industry sprang up. As a matter of fact, the construction industry had become so complicated that about 40 years ago, it split again between those that built and those that managed. In the past 2 decades, technology has exploded. There are now infinite combinations of materials and methods to choose from, and it takes hundreds of well-trained and well-paid professionals to do what that one master builder used to do. Here are some numbers that I found from a McGraw-Hill study during my research. The capital facility industry is huge, but it's fragmented into thousands of subsectors and over 1 million small companies. The tools we use are fragmented. There are thousands of software systems that team members use, most of which don't communicate with one another. and our roles and responsibilities and processes are fragmented across all phases of the facility life cycle. Each task is done for the most part with little knowledge or understanding of how or what effect the work has on others downstream. We complete our work, and the information is thrown over the wall to the next silo. And to top it all off, most of our projects are one of a kind. There's no testing of a prototype like in manufacturing. All this leads to inconsistencies between projects and across the facility life cycle. It's no wonder that it's costing more to produce less. An industry-wide information and technology explosion has occurred, yet for the most part we still use the same processes, the same business practices, and the same value systems that were developed 150 years ago. We're trying to force new processes into old thinking rather than adapt our thinking to the changes around us. And this is causing my industry and your industry to be in the deepest productivity crisis of its existence. So how do we get good at what we do? Or maybe I should ask, how will we get good at what we do? Because what we did in the past is not working. Well, I believe it starts with the removal of our cognitive blind spots, to be able to see, understand, and accept the changes that are occurring around us. For the capital facility teams, getting good and moving towards a productive future will require fundamental process changes to take full advantage of the technologies. It will require changes to everything from our business systems to our value systems. And it will require strong leadership from all team members, but especially from the building owner. The owner is in the driver's seat. It has the most to gain, and only the owner can determine the vision of where it's going.